The Silly Goose Gang Podcast.
Episode 78 of the Silly Goose Gang Podcast, and it's a real pleasure to be joined today by Hannah Cunliffe. So Hannah, thanks very much for joining us today.
Of course, thanks for having me.
Unintentionally, we have yourself on for International Women's Day. That's actually quite a nice coincidence. That was not planned.
Right, and I have my Instagram deactivated, so I wasn't aware it was International Women's Day till my friend texted me, so it worked out perfect.
Did you say it got deactivated or you deactivated your Instagram there?
I deactivated it.
Deactivated, okay, yeah. No, that
Are you just fed up with social media, or?
Yeah, I feel like I need to focus, and being on social media and just it can be distracting, especially if you're like, going up and swiping up a lot or just opening your apps. Like it can become habit, and I just feel like, just like with the war and just everything going on, it's just, I need a break. And honestly, I've been a lot, mentally, I've been a lot clearer since I've deactivated it. So
yeah, I kind of decided just a couple of days ago, like, just to stop listening to anything to do with the war. I'm just like, I cannot, oh my God, this is so fucking mentally taxing. Like, all day.
Like, first it was COVID and then now the war.
Yeah.
Can we get a break?
I know. We've had it even more interesting because in Scotland we also had Brexit, which was Britain exiting the European Union, and before that we had Scottish independence. So we seem to have had about 6.5 years of just constant us versus them. On whatever the topic might be. Yeah, so you're right. It does get super tiring. But that's cool.
Yeah, it definitely does. So you just came back from a training session?
Yep. Weights, had some weights, had some training beforehand. Today was kind of a light day, but yeah, just I left my current group and in the process of getting another group right now. So that's another reason why I thought a social media break would be good.
Okay. So what does a light training day look like for a superhuman athlete?
So I mean, today it was just just a tempo day. So it's just, we go like 75% pace, and it's just, I did 5 180s, 180 meters. I did some drills, active dynamics, and then that was it. So that was like a pretty light day. Like, so it probably took me like an hour, 15 minutes, whereas like some other days it can go from 2 hours to 3 hours on the track. And then I had a nice and easy weight room as well. That only took me about 40 or 50 minutes to an hour. Yeah. So
it's
for me, it was a light day.
yeah. I used to watch. I used to train at an athletic centre near us, and some of the fastest guys over here. It was really interesting to watch them, how thorough they were just in warm-ups and stride and everything, getting everything in place before they even started to move quickly. It was something that I was always really interested in. And those were, some of them were kind of lower level people, so it's always interesting to speak to somebody who's like pretty fucking quick.
Right. Yeah, I know, because I feel like a lot of people just think like we just run and that's all we do, and it's like way more complex and like detailed than that. So I think when people actually get to see it in person, or watch a whole training session, they're just like, oh, okay, it's a little more intriguing, makes more sense. We're not just running laps.
Yeah, I know a previous guest of ours, a friend, Ian Mackey, was a Atlanta 96 semi-finalist in the 100 meters. So Ian's a friend, so I know what he used to do. It's some insane amounts of work. So the track part was like only a small part of it, like mobility and strength work, and it's like his muscular endurance stuff was crazy. So like you say, it's funny because when you run, people just think, yeah, you just run.
You're just running. Yeah.
You just run. It's the same with cycling or swimming, and you're just doing this. I mean, yes. And funnily enough, we were talking about this just before we spoke to you. I was getting because I've got an Iron distance triathlon to do this year, and I was getting fitted for a bike. My triathlon bike, I was getting fitted for it, and the details that they go into, like in terms of positioning and everything, like holy shit, like it's insane. So it's quite, it's fascinating to me. These I suppose you have to be kind of like a bit of a geek, but it's super interesting to know about like all the little details.
We were talking about the
And
idea that.
I feel like go ahead.
I was just going to say, we were talking about the idea of marginal gains, you know, those tiny little fractions adding up over a season, so that come, you know, Pac 10, Pac 12, whatever version you ran in, the championships at the end, you're peaking for that, for Chris for his triathlon, for you for your season. Those little gains over the course add up that you don't see initially until at the end of the season you compare and contrast, and suddenly you're like, damn, that was a massive improvement.
No, and that's true, because like at the professional level, we're all talented at this point. So it's all about the little details, like that 1% that you can get, you know? So yeah, you gotta definitely.
We were talking about laughing because I was talking about being on the 60-meter track indoors, and you know, 60 meters is a speciality of yours. And I was, you know, I you know, timed myself a few times. And I was looking at my times going, that seems fast. So, you know, I Googled like some fast 60 meters indoors times, and I'm like, I'm not that far behind like the best guys in the world until you're on an actual track with somebody when you go, oh, like 2 seconds over that distance is like nowhere. It's like lead boots on. It was hilarious. It was that, like, for a split second, I was kind of like, I think I might be really fast. And then you know, you're on the track for like guys like Ian Mackey, and you're like, oh my God, I am so slow. It's ridiculous.
No, I was, because, you know, I left my group, so I'm training by myself. And I told, you know, one of my mentors, I was like, look, I got to see where I'm at, because I can feel like I'm flying right now by myself. But as soon as you go up next to somebody, like, it could be a huge difference. But like you said, 2 seconds, you know, not a lot of people think, but really in like sprints, it's a tenth. They go down to the thousandth, the hundredth of a second, then thousandth of a second. So it's like that littlest detail matters. And it's like you said, it's everything, the little details. You got to have your mental focus right. Like it's a lot. I feel like track doesn't get a lot of respect, because people don't know, like, it's like mentally and physically like exhausting almost.
Yeah, it totally is, especially because, like say, both that marginal gains and the margin for error. You know, if you stumble on a marathon, you know, you've got 26 miles to make that quick stumble.
I've done that and I never made it back up.
Well, this is true. That can sometimes happen as well. But I just kept stumbling. If you stumble coming out of tracks, I used to hurdle many years ago, and you know, you clip that first set, and everything just chains on from there, and suddenly you're falling over the third or the fourth. You know, the flight, you're gone. So with sprinting, especially over the 60 meters, your margin for error must be pretty much zero. You know, if you don't get your blocks right, your start right, you're struggling from, you know, the B of the bang, as the infamous saying goes. You're struggling from then on. No,
exactly. Because if you mess up your start in a 60, I mean, basically you're accelerating and you got about 20 meters to run, if that. So it's like, mess that up, you're gonna have to get your legs turning to catch up to everybody. So especially in the shorter 60, you have less room for error.
That was one of the coolest things that I was ever told when I was sprinting. There was another guy that I know, and he was explaining to me about how you kind of, when you're using blocks, how you explode out, and there's a point where you have to sort of like rotate hips and stuff. It's like the point where you can't accelerate anymore. I was like this time, I was boxing at the time, so it was like an amateur boxer at the time, right? And I had always just been told to like just run, and then you speak to somebody and you're like, holy shit, like all these tight, it's amazing. So I think you're like, are you just under 11 seconds for 100?
Yeah, my fastest is 10:99, so literally right under.
So but it's still under. It's so fast.
I got it.
I get that sub 11.
That's so fast.
Sub 11. 7:07.60 as well.
Yep, in the 60. Yep.
That's so fast.
Yeah, I'm trying to get. I want to get under 7 in the 60. That's one of my goals before I retire.
Okay.
Yeah, that's so fast. So, have you never fancied? Have you ever done any longer stuff?
The longest I've done is the 400, and I long jump, but I could never go over it. I mean, you know, if someone like talked me into it, like, hey, you could, you know, be top in the 800 or something, or the 400, maybe. But I feel like I'm a sprinter. I've been a sprinter my whole life. And I always tell, like growing up, I'd go into the check-in, at track meets with my dad because he was my coach. And they'd be like, oh, the 3,000 or the mile is not for another 3 hours. And I was like, oh, I'm here for the sprints. And they'd be like, oh, okay. They'd like check us in. Like everyone thought that I was coming to check in and run the distance. But yeah, I've been sprinting. I think it was my dad put me in my first team when I was 8. Okay. So I think ever since then, and I did the 400 a little bit, like 5th grade, I think. So when I was around 10, and then the last time I did it was 7th grade. So I was like 13 or 14. And then after that, I was like, yeah, I'm 100, 260. That's it.
Yeah. But 800s, I always said 800. Like I would genuinely, I would rather run a marathon than do like 800 repeats. Like that is the worst form of torture. Like if you're doing something and it's like, try to keep within 10% of your first time, it's just like, I'd rather run a marathon. It's fucking
That's awful. What I'm saying. It's a sprint now. Like the 800, like people used to think, oh, the 4, but no, the 800, I feel like is a sprint. Like they're fast and they're keeping that pace. Yeah. And then accelerating at the end.
So was your dad a runner as well?
He did long jump at Washington State University.
Okay.
So yeah, he did a little long jump there and then left, and he's been coaching.
Okay.
And he did some software work as well.
Yeah, still coaching?
Yep, still coaching.
Awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, so the other thing that you're highly involved in is the anti-child trafficking. Not child trafficking, as Ali told somebody this today.
Indeed. Is that because I almost worded it exactly the same. When you feel yourself stumbling, you go, yeah, she's highly involved in
child trafficking.
No, not child trafficking. Fighting against the child trafficking, or raising awareness of.
I don't know how you word it.
Yeah, I don't know how you word it. Yeah, I don't know how you word that. That's actually, that's one of those, and that's actually, I guess it's the same, but slightly different just now, because Cain Velasquez is now on a murder charge for shooting somebody, being molesting his kid, and you're like, why are you not giving him a medal? Like, I don't understand. Do you know, it's crazy. So I don't know how that's going to play out. It's LA, and
they've refused bail. I saw that this morning. They refused bail on him. But again, I think it's one of those things, as we're going on to, and it's quite a serious topic. I know we're kind of laughing there at the introduction bit, but it is a serious topic, and I genuinely think, this is going to sound weird, but there's some crimes that people commit and people go, nah, okay. If people shoplift because they've got no money and they're stealing food and, basic necessities, I think a lot of people would go, well, they're but for the grace of God.
Right.
That's what it is. Child trafficking, child exploitation, anything along those lines. It's just, I don't know there's many people that go, well, in some circumstances. I think it's very much
yeah.
Unless you're involved in it, I suppose, but for the normal humans that aren't, as opposed to the assholes that are, it's very much just a no. Do not pass go, do not collect £200. This is a hard line in the sand, the hill that you're willing to die on, kind of.
Absolutely.
Crime.
So what was the, how do you get involved in that? Is it something like, is something that you're just passionate about, or?
So I've been in a lot of systems myself, and I've had friends who were in like foster care, and it's abusive, like foster care and stuff like that. It's supposed to help the kids, but majority of the time, those people that are fostering them just want the money. And like, I know a girl, I'd call her a sister to this day. We don't really keep in touch anymore, but she lived with my family for a little bit. And the stuff that she told me that was going on there, like she had a shower time limit of 3 minutes, and, lights had to be out at 8:00. They couldn't go get snacks past a certain hour. Well, yeah, because they're taking in their checks and, they're giving them the minimum that they can so they can profit. And I'm seeing that in a lot of, it could be collegiate, in collegiate systems, foster care systems. So I'm seeing like there's a lot more child abuse than we know. And like, even personally myself, I I had an experience with a chiropractor when I was younger, and I'm like, and my parents were around. So I'm like, if this is happening to me, my parents are right there in the next room. I can't even imagine what's happening to kids like, who aren't documented or, who are in the foster care system, stuff like that. So, and I think to, anyone under the age, even 18, I feel like if you're abusing them or using them in some type of way, like it's inhumane, you know what I mean? And like your heart, there's something wrong with your heart. So I guess I just went down a rabbit hole and I started looking up numbers, because we hear, like, at least in the US, we think, okay, there's child trafficking or sex trafficking, but we don't think it's as serious as what it is. And when you start reading up stories on like people in Congress, people who work for the FBI, CIA, and they're giving you like real accounts, and it's on YouTube or, government official documents, and they're giving real life accounts of what's going on. And I feel like people in the US just think, oh, it doesn't happen here, so we're fine. It happens overseas. And it's like, no, it happens right here, like right under our nose. And it's way bigger than what we think. And I think 2020, like, I kind of tried to stay away from conspiracies and stuff for a little while, because sometimes, it can get you to overthink and, just like, dang, just realize like the world that we live in is actually a lot like darker and evil than what we think. But 2020, it's like something just hit me. And I was like, nah, I have to speak out about this. Like, I have a platform and I should use it. Like, okay, that's good that I'm using it for track and inspiring people in that way. But I just felt needed to, start speaking up about it, just from like personal experience, people around me, and that I feel like it happens here way more than what they tell us. And so I guess that's basically
it's one of those things. It's one of those things where you feel awkward, and I don't know why, like, about speaking out about it. Like me and Ali, we joke about a lot of things and stuff, and you go, yeah, but like abusing children is one of those things you're like, no, that's a hell that I'm prepared to die on. Yeah. You're like, that's fucking wrong. And like I'm saying, I know they were talking about, like Joe Rogan was saying that, he just wishes it came and just beat the guy to death rather than shoot him. That's his only concern, like, because that's exactly what something like that deserves.
Yeah.
So it's one of those, but I don't know why. I don't know why it's something that, even, probably we would say, I feel a bit awkward speaking about it. And I don't know if it's because people do think this happens in a far away land, but it does happen in, every city, town, village, worldwide. I don't know why. I don't know why we would feel kind of awkward about it. No.
I mean, it's not on the news as much. We only see, like, you'll see a missing child, so you only think that it happens, because I feel like here, I don't know, our laws, they protect child molesters more than they do drug dealers. I don't know what it is where you guys are. I don't know if it's the same way, but here, I mean, you can get locked up for having, marijuana or cocaine longer than you could for molesting a child. And so it's like, make it make sense. You know what I mean? So are these laws that are given to us, are they for our benefit, or are they for someone else's at the end of the day?
No, sorry to Hannah jumping in, but yeah, we've had, again, in Britain, or England more specifically, but Britain as a whole, we've had a lot of historic cases that have came to light, both within the care system, because we had a lot of religious convent type schools / foster homes that unmarried single mothers would have a child and would be forced by the church to give them up, particularly in Scotland and and Ireland, because they still are very religious countries. So if you were an unmarried mother and you became pregnant, what often happened was you would disappear to a relative's for several weeks, and then basically, as the pregnancy was starting to show, you would deliver the baby and you would never see it. The midwife would take it and basically hand it to this convent school, and they would take the child and raise it within this convent system, exactly as you were sort of describing. Yeah. And then there was another vein to it where there was a very, I suppose infamous now, but famous he was a children's entertainer called Jimmy Savile. I don't know if you've ever heard of him, but he had a TV show in the 70s and 80s in Britain, probably up into the early 90s. And his show was called Jim Will Fix It. And what he basically used to do was get kids onto his show, and they would write in and say, "Dear Jim, I'm a massive fan of athletics. I'd like to meet Hannah Cunliffe." And he would arrange for them to come and meet you, but he would be there as well. And it came out after they died that it was not just a child molester, but it was a necrophiliac. And they'd given him access to Stoke Mandeville Hospital because he had raised so much money for charity. Everyone turned a blind eye. But someone gave him a key to the morgue. Why the fuck would you want a key to the morgue? And he was basically abusing the dead bodies.
The BBC.
And the BBC, the British.
And now, this gets worse. Now we're starting to fucking roll. The guy who is now the leader of the opposition in Westminster, Sir Keir Starmer, was the guy who investigated him and looked into it and went, "I don't see any reason to prosecute."
Of course.
What the fuck?
So we've got that.
So what do you think in that instance? Like, do you think someone is like he got paid off, or he's doing it himself to where he doesn't care, or what?
I think the second case, again, just for the purposes of the tape and any libel, we're not saying Keir Starmer as a kiddie fiddler, but on my basis of, and again, there's a lot of history tied in with Jimmy Savile was very highly linked into the Conservative Party, which are currently in power in the UK. They're kind of broadly similar, I guess, to the Republican Party. Similar-ish to that kind of side of things. But they had a couple of MPs that for years were rumoured to be taking homeless young boys off the streets, taking them in boats off the Isle of Wight into international waters with all their paedophile friends, drugging, abusing, and then dumping the bodies in international water. And of course, because they're homeless, vagrant kids, as they were known at the time, police report comes in, file, and Jimmy Savile was involved in that whole thing. So again, was there pressure from above? Almost certainly. Is there a connection with the fact that Keir Starmer was the chief of the prosecution service and is now the head of essentially the Democrat Party over here? Well, back, do you know what I mean? But again, if you add the dots, you don't want to say yes, but you can't also say no. You kind of go, well, you know, if you lay down the dog, you're going to get fleas, as the old saying goes.
I mean, because like you said earlier, like it should be a no-brainer. If a kid's getting abused, why are we just giving them a slap on the wrist?
Yeah.
Like, it's a child at that point. They can't do anything. Like, it's just, yeah, it amazes me. Like, just even the whole Epstein case. I know you guys touched up on that. I mean, and the prince just, he paid off, he settled with Virginia
Giuffre.
Yep.
There was a lot of people sharing memes about that, Prince Andrew's, he's just handing out $12 million to people he's never met. It's amazing. Like, you've stood up in court and said, yeah, I've never met this woman.
Yeah.
Why did you give her millions of pounds? You just get the picture of at the Queen's Lodge.
Was that Balmoral at the Queen's Lodge?
The royal residence in Scotland, and there's pictures of Jeffrey Epstein
and
Ghislaine Maxwell in the Queen's Lodge. You're going, what the fuck?
Right.
But Andrew didn't know them at all but well enough to invite them to the Queen's house. Like, I'm sure, do you know what I mean? The people that you invite to your house, I would imagine you know quite well. You don't just randomly. And when it's the Queen, you imagine there's another level. Do you know what I mean?
I would imagine there's some paperwork to fill out.
No.
It's the fucking Queen.
Yeah, I imagine there's some paperwork.
That's why I don't like. If people try to argue with me about it, because 2020, I was getting a lot of nasty messages and stuff when I was speaking out about it. But if they try to argue it, like, it's at this point, if you're going to believe the lies, like, you're fine with being conditioned and you don't want to know the truth because it's literally in our face. Like, it's in our face. It's with, it's within the government, it's elites, it's everywhere. It could be police officers. Like, you just never know now. Like, coaches, like, and as you see, a lot of these people in the name of, charities or foundations are trying to help kids. No, you're abusing kids. Yeah. And it happens on like a wide scale. Like, it's daycare, you know what I mean? It's like I said, foster care. It could be, high schools, middle schools, police systems. Like, people just think, oh, okay, like, and I think this is what frustrates me the most is somebody's of high status, like, you just automatically trust them. with your kid. And it's like, no.
No.
You know what I mean? Like Bill Gates' wife came out and said part of their divorce was because of he was so close with Epstein. And I didn't get to, my friend just sent me the whole article and I didn't get to read the whole thing, but I was just like, you know, and this guy's a software engineer, and then we're trusting him with medical advice. Like, when are we gonna use common sense?
You know, I think once you fly with somebody after they've been convicted of child sex offences, I think it's safe to say that person's a fucking piece of shit.
I always said though in that I would give someone potentially a pass for one flight. And as much as it, and again, before this sounds like I'm advocating for it, but let's say, you know, because Epstein was, as you were saying, Hannah, very influential, very well connected, you know, and along with like Harvey Weinstein, you know, they were all flying about. So if you're like a young aspiring actor, let's say you get invited a chance to go to this tropical island and you don't know all the rumors. So you fly out to the island, you get there and you go, holy shit, how quickly can I get back off this island?
How can I get off? Yeah.
And you never go back. Okay,
Bill Gates went back. Like,
when you appear 35 times in the flight manifestos, then you're a fucking scumbag.
That's what I'm saying.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, if you're going multiple times, yeah, we could give, you know, like some people, they took pictures with him. They probably didn't know. So we can't assume that, you know, all the actors and actresses that were around him, that they were aware. But once you see it, you know, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times, like it's not an accident at this point. Like,
yeah, I don't even know, because if you live in that world, it's like the Harvey Weinstein thing. Like, there's no way in that industry there wasn't rumors.
No.
You know, exactly the same with Jimmy Savile. There's no way. Like, I don't know if do you know who the Sex Pistols are? The punk band from the 70s.
What'd you say? What? Can you repeat that?
The Sex Pistols. Do you know who the Sex Pistols are? A punk band.
Oh, I didn't hear about that.
So they were 1970s punk band, the kind of the you know, British band who sort of made punk enormous over here. And the lead singer, Johnny Rotten, did an interview on BBC in like 1977. And he said then, you know, they were talking about the BBC, and, you know, he had said, I can't remember what it was, but, you know, yeah, I've heard rumours about Jimmy Savile. I've heard rumours about him doing bad things. And they banned him from appearing on the BBC. He was banned. And, you know, it wasn't until like 2016 that they did another interview with him. And it's like, yeah, everybody knew.
Yeah. And all the governors of the BBC, again, going back to the kind of people at the top, were either involved or knew about it and turned a blind eye. So it's like,
there's no way that people are anywhere around about Epstein or Weinstein. There's no way they didn't know.
No.
It's impossible.
Yeah.
Because if something happens, like I don't know exactly where you stay, but, you know, like in small villages like where we are, if something happens, the little whispers start and you start hearing things and you go, oh, okay. So when it's something like that, to that size, you go, there's no way people don't know. There's just no way. Which makes it worse. You know, so people, you know, me and Ali send things to each other all the time. And it's, you know, about whether it's some crazy professor at you know, some super liberal college in America, and they're like, you know, is it really a bad thing if an adult sleeps with a 12-year-old? You're like, yes. So we send you things all the time. It's like, how about you just fucking leave kids alone?
Yeah.
Like, let the kids go play.
Yeah.
Like
I've got three kids, 2 boys that are 18 and 19, but I have a 12-year-old daughter. And do you know what I mean? Like, you look at my daughter and you go, I'd quite happily murder someone. Do you know what I mean? If it happened. And they're tweeting things out like that, saying that, you know, there was a case in Britain where, you know, a couple of people were trying to get the age of consent lowered from 16 in Britain, getting it lowered from 16 down to 12 because, you know, their argument was, at the moment, technically speaking, if I was 16 and slept with my 15-year-old girlfriend, I could get done for statutory rape because she's under 16, even though there's only maybe a month age difference between us. So they're like, so if we lower the age to 12, it minimises that problem. And you go, yeah, but it creates a big fucking problem on the back end.
Yep.
Do you know what I mean? That's how they're pitching the argument.
Yeah, that's 12. No. I mean, I really think 18, like, I don't care. 16 is even, really, it should be 20. Like, kids aren't out the house. They, like, you have to figure out, your life. You have to piece things together. Like, I have seen so many instances of people, coaches or doctors or adults, businessmen grooming kids, acting like, okay, yeah, we're going to help you. And they're grooming them, to try and persuade them to get with them or to make them comfortable with them. Like, it's sick. And it's like, unless you have a strong personality or like, this is wrong. Like, a lot of people, they don't expect it to happen, especially if you're comfortable with the person. So it's like, if you think someone who's damn near like your uncle or your grandpa, that's what you consider them, or a mentor, and they come up and, touch you on your side, you're just like, at that, you know what I mean? At that point, you don't know, you're kind of in shock. You don't know what to do. So yeah, if you lower that to under 18 or 16, 12, like, that's ridiculous. I don't think that's humane at, like, no, a 12-year-old, like, they're taught to comply with adults. So how are they, you know what I mean? If their uncle or someone touches them inappropriately, how are they supposed to speak up in that situation?
We were talking about this in the gym just the other day about the amount of kind of young Muslim girls that go missing in the UK, and they get shipped back to Pakistan
as child brides.
First child brides, like 12-year-olds, 10-year-olds. Yeah. That's a real thing. Yeah. And because it's an issue of race or religion, nobody wants to talk about that. Nobody.
So they keep it under the rug.
They just sweep that under the rug.
Yeah.
That is not talked about at all. I'm like completely, and that is taboo. You will not bring that up. But that's a real thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they just.
So and then you sweep it under, and then everybody, these kids, they wonder why these kids have mental health issues. I mean, if you keep someone around, they're an abuser, and they had to deal with that their whole life, and then they think it's normal, they're going to go get abused by someone else next.
I mean, that within that sort of community that's family doing that.
Yeah,
that's family.
That's what makes it worse.
That's what makes it worse.
They'll get told that they're going on holiday to visit relatives. So they're like, oh, exciting, maybe for the first time, because they're very often born in the UK, so they've never been to, their home country for one of India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, wherever. So we're going to go back and we're going to visit the old country. You get to meet your gran that we've talked about, your great uncle that we've talked about. And then suddenly they turn up and they go, and by the way, this is your cousin and you're about to marry them and they're 26.
Yeah.
But it's a good fit for the family, so it's all good.
That is a real thing.
Good fit for the family. What about for the individual?
Mm.
And it's selfish sometimes, but you got to like, people have to start thinking about themselves and for themselves. Like, if you feel like something's wrong and your family is, like, I know a few people, they're around a family that, they've been abused in, and I'm like, it's not helping you in any way. Like, because most of the time these people cope with alcohol or drugs, especially if they have to be around their abuser.
Funnily enough, though, Hannah, I was talking to Ali about this, earlier on, and we're talking about, somebody that I had known before, and it's like, if you're and this happened to me, once you're very close to somebody, you kind of stop seeing the bullshit and all the shit that comes with them, and you just kind of see them for, whether they're a friend or whatever. It's not until you can step back and go, holy shit, why was that so stupid?
Yeah.
So it'd be the same thing if you were, leading on, a child. They wouldn't know any better, because this is my uncle, my auntie, my cousin, my dad, granddad, whatever it is. So they should be comfortable in that position. They don't realize that they're being abused.
Yeah, and it does happen within family. It happens within, like, the abuser is always someone closer. It's not a random, like, it's either a friend or a family member, statistically speaking, for most of those cases. it is someone close to the family that you would trust your kids with that it happened.
It's like you were saying with the kind of coach authority figure. Two big cases. I don't know how much you know about this, Chris, but I'm sure you will, Hannah, because it's based around American sports. But Jerry Sandusky at Penn State, and then Larry Nassar, the gymnastics doctor. I think he was maybe at Michigan, University of Michigan. I think he was at for a long time. Maybe Michigan State was one of the two of them. But he was in position, both of them, but in positions of power. Jerry Sandusky ran a charity, like you were saying, Hannah, to get access to young, underprivileged boys. And he would be like, come to Penn State games, which is one of the biggest collegiate football teams in America. Okay. And he would give them access to the changing rooms and get to see them. Yep. And he was literally raping these children. And again, and then taking them back to the parents and saying, we had a great weekend. Can I take little Jimmy again next week to Penn State? And they're like, wow, cool. Yeah, my kid's getting access to all this cool stuff. And Sandusky's giving out trainers and T-shirts because Penn State's sponsored and got all the kit they can hand out. And Larry Nassar again, you know, Simone Biles came out and spoke about the fact that Nassar had, and amongst many other people, but Simone Biles probably the highest profile that I was aware of, certainly, aware of, and came out and said, you know what, he abused me under the guise of physical examinations. He was doing the internal pelvic examinations on like 8, 9, 10-year-old girls.
Yeah.
But it's because you don't. And he was asked by the police, and I remember seeing the interview. And he's like, "You don't understand how my work goes. You know, I have to put my fingers inside them to work their internal pelvic girdle." And you're like, "What? No, you fucking don't."
Yeah, you want to do that. You don't have to do that. Like, let's separate the two. You know what I mean? Like, it's. Yeah, I watched the Simone Biles thing. Yeah, the what was it? Athlete A, I think, on Netflix.
Yes.
And I do remember the football. Where'd you say was that? It was at Michigan. He was an older coach.
Yeah, he was Penn State, Jerry Sandusky under Joe Paterno.
That's who it was. Okay, and I mean, 9 times out of 10, they're helping kids with families who don't have that much money or resources that can help themselves. So these parents are thinking, oh, you know, these people are doing a favor. My kid's getting good connections. You know, he's going to this college football team. He's in the locker room getting a real experience. So they think they're doing something good for their kid. And meanwhile, you know, the coach knows, this is an underprivileged family. Oh, this is perfect. I can abuse them. And if later on I can just pay the family off. Like it and they know, like they know who to prey on. They know who's weak. They know who comes from a bad family background. They can read that. Like, they're a lot smarter than what people think to be able to, you know, maneuver and get away with it for so many years.
We spoke to, oh my God, I'm terrible with names. The undercover FBI guy.
Oh, Bob Hamer. Bob Hamer.
Okay.
He had worked with, you know, Bob Hamer was an undercover FBI guy, and he worked with some mafia guys and drug dealers. And one of the things he did was people who were into, you know, abusing children.
It was called NAMBLA, North American Man Boy Association, just to give it a nice term for the T-shirts.
He was saying that when he was speaking to them, you know, infiltrating their organization, that they were all very normal and they didn't really see as what they were doing was wrong.
Yeah.
Like, so they just get to a point where this is just normal now, and you're like, it's not. Like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Yeah. And this is when I don't believe. You know, when people like to talk about, you know, trying to rehabilitate people, I don't think you could rehabilitate those people. I think they need lined up against the wall and shot. Do you know what I mean? Because how do you? I can't even put it into words how that makes me fucking feel.
Yeah, and I think I just think this day and age, people, they like our emotions and our heart. Like, we don't feel empathy for people as much anymore. So I think people are just like, well, I got to go to my job and, you know, I got my kids, and as long as my family's fine, it's okay. But until it affects, you know, their own family, I think a lot of people are just fine with not talking about it or sweeping it under the rug. And I feel like that's why it happens worldwide, you know?
Yeah, it totally does.
I know. I remember seeing, maybe it may well have been around about like 2020 when you were talking about Hannah. And it was things just about, I think it was to do with like the number of people who had died from COVID. And it was, you know, at that point, you know, it was small. And then it was like the amount of children that go missing in America every year.
Yeah.
And it was like, was it 800,000?
Oh, easily.
And it's like, what
Plus,
the fuck?
and that's documented. So we don't even know how many are going missing that are kids undocumented.
Yeah.
You know, we like, who knows the actual number? So yeah, if we're almost to 1 million, where are they going? And I think it's I'd have to go back on my Instagram, but I posted the statistic. I think it's I don't want to put a number, but out of every 10 kids in foster care, you know, a certain amount goes missing. And I believe, and it was close to half.
Jesus. Yeah.
And they're never found again. No trace. So like,
what would the number be that were coming across the border?
Oh yeah, that's even, I mean, people, yeah, the border, yeah, that's even worse. We don't know where those people are going.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They're keeping them in cages like that were made years ago in the 2000s that people think they were made recently. No, this was made, I think, before Obama. A lot of these holding cells or places were made. So it's like, yeah, we don't know where they're going. And a lot of them are getting raped. Like, and that's out too. So it's just, and I think because the news and the media is so controlled, you know, people are only seeing bits and pieces. No one's actually going in and like, hold on, let me look this up. Let me do some hours of research. It takes time, but it's like, if you want to know the truth, you know, you have to dig deep and understand just how everything's working. And it's horrible.
Yeah.
Absolutely
it
horrible.
really is. And it does.
And you would think like foster care is supposed to help kids. Like that's what we grow up thinking. But it's like, it's honestly and you know, you're lucky if you get a good family that actually cares about you.
Yeah, I actually have real life experience of that. I won't name names, obviously, but there was a couple that both my wife Sandy, me and Sandy knew them, and they were foster carers, and they taken in 3 kids, and they were getting £800 per week per kid. So you do the maths on that. So £800, whatever that works out in the dollars. Let's call it $1,000 for argument's sake. Okay. Per kid per week. I don't know what the exchange rate is, but just to do a rough calculation. And they were exactly like you were saying. You know, the kids had, and I get every parent has, you know, a bedtime.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? But this was like a level above. And like one time they had one who was, the kid was 4.5, one of them. And they'd been in and out of care from birth. So they had a lot of, you know, what would now be psychological issues. We're going back kind of 10 years or so ago now, even longer than that actually, 12 years ago, because it was just after Anya was born. Anyway, and the little kid had wet his bed one night, and the foster dad made the kid stand in a circle he had drawn on the ground, bare naked, to teach him a lesson for pissing himself, till the kid basically passed out, because it was the middle of the night, until the kid basically passed out, stood out, fell and split his eyebrow. And I know for a fact that the foster dad reported it back to say he tripped over when we were having fun in the garden playing football. And it was on the outside of the eye, so it didn't look like a punch, because it was genuinely, he'd fallen down and cracked his brow ridge off a set of drawers. So it was on the outside of the eye, where a lot of kids do get dinks and scrapes on their face because they fall over, as kids do. And that was one instance that I knew about, and he told me about it. And me and Sandy reported it back to the relevant authorities, and nothing happened. And then it happened again with another situation, and we reported it to the school this time.
Okay.
And literally 3 days later, social services came in and took all the kids away from them. And they came at me for taking away his income. Came after me physically. I was like, that's cool, I'm quite happy to put the hands up. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, I'll swing back.
That's what I'm saying. People are so concerned about paper that's not even like it's not even a real currency. They'll burn it. Like, more concerned about that than these kids, and they'll take on 6 or 7 kids at a time for more money. Like, how can you pay attention to them? How are you feeding them? Like,
well, that's what he was looking to do. He was in the process of trying to buy a bigger house so he'd have 3 extra bedrooms, because he'd worked out
more kids.
The extra rent he would pay on the mortgage, whichever way he was doing it, would be more than counterbalanced, because he could put 2 kids per room. If they were of the same sex and within a certain age range, you could put 2 kids in. So he's like, I could get an extra 8 kids in, times it by $1,000. So I'm suddenly making $5,000 a month for caring for these kids. But as you say, how can, at that level, and if you are just interested in the money, and there are some wonderful foster families out there, but this is one example that I saw where the guy and the mum were assholes. And as I say, he physically came after me when we reported. He knew it was us because I told him.
Oh, you told him?
Yeah, he was like, oh, they've taken the kids off. I was like, good, that's the second time I had to report you, you prick. And he was like, you fucking took all my money off me. And he literally started swinging at me. And I was like, okay, we're going to swing back now. Do you know what I mean?
That's fucking insane. What was the that story fairly recently? The little kid, and there was audio of them on the telly.
Oh, that was fucking horrific.
The mum had tried to murder the dad, and then the dad had got custody of the kid, and then the dad it
was basically the boyfriend. The mum and the boyfriend. So the mum and the dad, the biological mum and dad of this wee kid, split. So the mum got a new boyfriend, which a lot of people do, and he had 2 kids himself, the boyfriend. And he basically had the boyfriend, the mum, and the 2 other kids basically abused this wee boy to the point of death. And there was
that in California?
This was over here. This was here in Britain.
Oh.
And basically there was audio released as part of the court footage. And I'm not too ashamed to say it teared me up listening to it. And they basically starved the wee boy, were feeding him salt, beating him, putting cigarettes out on him, making him eat dog feces, like horrific things. And at one point in the video that they showed, and again, I could feel myself choking thinking about it, but the wee boy literally said it was recorded on a CCTV that they had installed to check that none of the kids were sneaking their brother food. That's how fucking sick and twisted these bastards were. And literally, the wee boy was stood. He could barely stand up. He hadn't been fed for 4 days, they reckon, by this point. And he burst into tears and said, "Why does no one love me?"
And it's like, how can you, that could put people in tears, you know what I mean? Like, how can you even, it's so just sad. It's sad. And that case sounds really similar. I don't know if you heard of, I think it's Gabriel, was it Hernan or Gabriel on Netflix as well? And that was a very similar situation. They were keeping him in a cupboard, starving him, putting out the cigarette butts on him, beating him up. And he was going to school. And I'm like, what are these schools? You know what I mean? Like, what are these schools doing? Like, it's just, I don't know. And they were saying that the foster care worker, that it had been reported to the foster care worker a few times and nothing was done. So at this point, it's like, okay, are the foster care workers just trying to get a check? Do they really care? Is there at this, are people's hearts open right now?
We see that a lot over here after cases like that, the heads of protective child services or the equivalent will come out and they'll wring their hands and they'll say, lessons will be learned and this won't happen again. And then 18 months down the line, another case comes out. And that, like you said, Hannah, that's the one case that makes it into the public view. Fun. How many other are brushed or don't hear about? This one makes it out. And it's the same, like you said, it's happening in California, it's happening in Britain, it's happening in Scotland. And they come out and they say, lessons will be learned and there'll be new safeguards put in place. But then what happens as well is councils make budget cuts. And the first budget that tends to go are things like that. So then, you might have had a department of 30 social workers or, foster care workers. And now you cut it to 20, but your workload stays the same.
Yep.
And then they cut it to 15 and suddenly you've got half as many people doing twice as much work.
Yeah.
And things slip between the cracks. And again, people then exploit that because they know that's happening.
Yeah. Yeah. And there probably isn't. I haven't even looked up what the budgets, are in each state for that. But yeah, it's probably not comparable to what we're doing for the military, a military budget. So it's just, it's backwards. And it's here, I just feel like it's the whole system. It's backwards. Something needs to change. And we all just sit here and complain 24/7. So what can we actively do to try to make a change? And that's kind of what I've been trying to figure out. I'm like, you know what I mean? That's why I started using my platform. So I'm just what can we do at this point? Because that's happening everywhere.
That's the thing. Somebody like you who's well known and has a big platform. I feel like people like you could, but then maybe it's a risk because maybe sponsors go, yeah, don't say that because that's not good. You know, and it seems like it's like who like surely looking after children could only be described as being good. Like
Right.
stop abusing children is something that we could all agree on. Like
Agree on, right?
You know, it's like you know, it's one of those things. You know, things that cause men to rape, and it's like you're a rapist. There's nothing that causes it. You're fucking Surely we could all agree on that's a bad thing.
A skimpy outfit. That's why he raped you. No, he has no fucking self-control. Like, let's just lay it out there.
That's why he did that. Like,
it's like all the ones like you say, where it's like, here's a short list of how not to be raped, and it's like, don't be a rapist.
Don't be a rapist. Yeah. It's
that simple. We don't need to go any deeper.
And it feels like those things like we should all be able to agree on okay, let's don't abuse children. Okay, but don't rape people. Like, don't be racist. Like, surely these things should be like the first things you're writing down on how to not be a dickhead.
Right.
Like, how hard can it be? And the fact that you worry about speaking out about it, it's great. Like, it just seems like I don't even know what to say. Like, it's just so insane.
Yeah.
So insane. So,
but like you said, you posted about it on your platform starting in 2020, and I saw it because I've followed you for a couple of years now. Without wanting to sound like a weird stalker on Instagram.
Oh no, yeah.
But I followed you for a couple of years on Insta, and I saw the shit that you were getting off people, and that baffles me as well, because I don't know if it's because you're a woman, I don't know if it's because you're a young woman, I don't know if it's because you're a young successful woman. Does that make you more of a target that people feel like the internet trolls can be like, yeah, well, fuck you, Hannah, and you're privileged and you throwing it out? I don't know, but why do people come after people for raising it? It makes no sense. I'm expecting us to get shit for posting this episode. Cool, good. Me and Chris will take it all.
You cannot come after Scottish people because we will be savage as fuck back then.
I invite it forward to the comments in the YouTube section. I'm opening this open challenge internet section. Fucking bring it. We'll call you all the cunts in the world. However, for yourself, you did get shit on social media, which is baffling. That you're raising a high profile of something that we can all agree is a awful subject. It's an awful thing to be happening. So why do people come after people? Oh, you shouldn't be talking about that, Hannah. You just need to be pretty and run fast.
Run and track, run sport.
Yeah. Stay in your lane. Stay in your lane, Cunliffe. Stay in your fucking lane.
Yeah.
Like what?
Yep.
I see. Instantly, I would go check that motherfucker's hard drive.
Yeah, you're like, all right, something's up with you, sir. Because it did get to me mentally. Like, I was really worked up. I feel like I'm better to a point now where if someone were to go on my social media, I have really good self-control. Even if they trigger me, I know not to respond, because it's like, you're just ignorant at this point, and I'll let you talk to yourself. I'll block you or I'll delete your comment. Like, it's not too hard.
Yeah.
Like, now we have the limits, so that can make it a little easier sometime. But yeah, it really blew my mind, because I'm putting out facts. I'm putting out stats. Like, I wasn't putting out conspiracy or this idea or this could be that. No, this was articles. This was stuff I researched, numbers you can go find on the internet from legit websites, government websites, and I'm getting backlash for it, and I'm trying to help kids. Like, and I think, the whole point of me trying to do that is because I felt like, in certain situations in my life, that bad stuff happened to me, and I was abused in certain situations. So why not try to be there for somebody and try and help them, save them? And the fact that, I was getting backlash, and people I knew, like, it was from people I knew, like, growing up running track, telling me, just stick to track. I mean, I just feel like athletes or, celebrities, we all just have a talent that's glorified. But at the end of the day, we're all human, and we should all have the same human, what would you say, principles?
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? And if I feel like I want to speak out against something politically or, child sex trafficking, and it's my platform, I should be able to do it. But I've had people message me, oh, be careful. Oh, it's not a good look for your sponsor. yeah, you might want to chill out. And you know, I'll take my breaks here and there, but I just feel like it's something that has to be said. Like
one of the things that I've figured out over the last couple of years is, you know, especially when things were getting a little bit sketchy in Europe, the UK, when they were certainly in Scotland, we had like COVID vaccine passports and stuff were coming in.
Did they drop that there? Or is
Just,
it still in effect?
Just, but
we still have some restrictions, but the COVID passport got dropped the day after my son turned 18, which he was delighted with because it meant he could go to the pubs.
so it was one of those things where it started to get a little bit worrying at some point, because, you know, there was talk of, you know, not being able to go to supermarkets unless you had a COVID passport. And one of the things that, you know, really got to me was you have to stand up for what's right. So whether that's you can't buy food unless you take this vaccine that you probably don't need, or you know, child sex trafficking. It's like this is wrong. Like, you have to stand up for what you believe in, otherwise, you know, you're just going like with the crowd. And if everybody does that, nothing happens. Whereas if everybody stood up and went, you know, we shouldn't be fucking abusing children.
Yeah.
You know, and I don't think you should build, you know, it's kind of a similar kind of thing, because I don't think any human being should be able to force another human being to do anything.
Right.
You know, if you stand up for what's right.
For what's right, yeah.
I just don't think you can go far wrong. You know,
yeah.
If people don't like you because of that, fuck them.
Fuck them, yeah. No, I mean, they do it even the Olympics, you know, they were trying to ban some of the athletes from doing certain protests on the podium and stuff where they were going to be kicked out. Why? Because politics is in sports. So if somebody wants to raise their fist on the podium, you should let them. If they want to wear something that's going, you know, anti-racism, anti-child trafficking, whatever, let them. Like, we got to this point in our career, we got to these platforms, and this is what we should be able to use for, but they just try to dim those lights. I mean, Kyrie Irving, like, that man lost millions of dollars because he didn't want to get a vaccine. He's on a team playing now, still on that team. People aren't asking him how are his games going or how he feels about, you know, his stats or being back with the team. They want to know, well, what about the vaccine? Like, come on. You know what I mean? The man didn't want to get it. Cool. If just because some of y'all would go get jabbed up for $200 million to play in a game, that's not everybody. Not everybody can be bought by money. You know what I mean? So, yeah, like you said, at the end of the day, like, it's just stand up for what's right and what you feel is right. And nobody should, you know, dim you or criticize you. But once you get to that level, like, people feel like they can say whatever. And it's like, and most of them that are saying it, if you were to go say that to their face, they'd probably break down, have a mental breakdown. You know, like, they can't handle it.
or you say it to a couple of angry Scotsmen and they punch you right in the fucking mouth.
Works.
You guys got more. You guys might be able to do that more over there, huh?
Yeah.
The bar fights.
Yeah. Fuck that. I'm not. To be fair, we're too old now to be in bars. We're getting old. We're old men these days. But I think that's something that people have got too comfortable with these days.
Yeah.
Slightly off topic, but people think they can talk shit about you online. You go, oh, cool. I mean, if you talk shit to me, I'm probably going to at least choke you out. Like, like, you can't see, you know what I mean? I think people have got too comfortable with that. Like, you know, I suppose you would know this, you know, being an athlete and kind of being in the public eye, people think they could just contact your Instagram and say whatever the fuck they want. You go, no, you can't.
They think they know me based off of my Instagram. Like, I don't post 3/4 of my life on my Instagram. You see what I want you to see.
Yeah.
You know, like, it's just.
Sorry, Hannah. How many of them do you think would actually say it to your face if they make you attract me? Do you think?
Out of my followers, probably 5, because if that, I don't even think people would say it, because a lot of them are troll accounts. And that's another thing I told myself. I'm never answering a troll account. You're not even man enough to put your face on there or your real name. I can care less what you have to say.
Yeah.
Even if it does, trigger me or like get to me a little bit, like, no, I can't let it, because you can't even show your face.
Yeah.
You need a whole account to go out of your way to express your opinion or to put me down for what?
Now, Now, to end on a happier note, Hannah, when are we going to see you on an Olympic podium?
2024, man. I'm telling you, I'm all right. Like, I know my potential. I'm dedicated, and I'm not quitting. Like, I will not quit until I get there. And this has been my goal, and I feel like I have everything lined up, and I just need to. It's a good time for me to focus in. Part of the reason why I did Instagram break. So
put everything together, and when you're an Olympic medalist, we want to speak to you again.
Oh, of course, I'll definitely be back.
Yeah, I think we've probably taken enough of your time now. Yeah, we're about an hour. I think we've probably taken enough of your time. You probably deserve to go and have a little nap and chill out, and you probably get a little bit worked up there. So go and relax.
Yeah, I know, right? I'm like,
have a nice big bubble bath, and keep focused, and keep doing what's right.
Appreciate it.
For anyone, just before we finally wrap up, for anyone that does want to find out more about you, I know you said you've deactivated your Insta at the moment. Is there anywhere people can follow or find out more about you? But if you do get trolls, send them my way and Chris's way, and we'll sort them out for you. We'll fuck them up. We'll sort them out.
I appreciate it. Yes, my Twitter is Hannah Cunliffe 5, as well as my TikTok, Hannah Cunliffe 5. And then when I reactivate my Instagram, it's Hannah NC5.
Beautiful. Awesome. Beautiful. Well, this has been a fun, interesting episode. It's nice to get deep into the weeds. It was lovely to speak as well, but we will call episode 78 with Hannah Cunliffe done and dusted. Thanks very much, Hannah.
Perfect. Thank you.
The Silly Goose Gang Podcast.